Thank you, Savita. Thank you, everyone, for having me. I hope I'm audible, and I'll just pop in my screen. So I hope the screen is still visible. Awesome. Cool. So my name is Gaurav, and thank you, everyone, for having me on this OSCONF. I've been really excited. I've been contributing any way possible to this. Thank you for all the great talks, and thank you, everybody, for joining in. Let's get started. Who am I? I am Gaurav Gehlot. I'm a software engineer working with InfraCloud. I am a Tinkerbell maintainer, and I also contribute to gRPC Go and some other tooling. I was active in Docker getting involved. That is now available, which I think Ajit has already shared with everyone. I'm a Docker community leader for Pune, and if you'd like to get connected with me, follow me on Twitter or connect with me on LinkedIn. I'll be more than happy to talk to you about anything that is there. So about the talk today, what I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce you to nektos Act. I'm not a contributor to nektos Act, but a problem that I was facing recently in Tinkerbell led me to try out running GitHub Actions locally. And that's how this whole thing started. And I really like the product. It has some limitations, but I think it is a great starting point for anyone who is interested to run GitHub Actions locally, and it should be good to go. So we'll be looking at why anyone would like to try it out, what nektos Act is. We'll have a quick demo, and then we'll give some limitations or word of caution about using nektos Act. So let's start with the why. One of the reasons why, so we have been listening a lot about gitops. We also talked about Argo CD, and at the end of the day, we have to design CI pipelines that do what it needs to take while compiling your applications, cross-compile it, run it, and make it available in form of be it binaries or Docker images, and deploy it somewhere. So if for any project that is basically moving from traditional way of deployments to CI/CD, what you have to do is you have to design a GitHub Actions pipeline, and which is under .github.workflows. And this is nothing but a step of workflows that are going to be executed as your CI pipeline progresses. Now, when you're doing it, what you have to do is you have to keep changing your CI pipeline, commit it to the master branch so that GitHub Actions or workflows could kick in and make sure that, okay, this pipeline is good and is in a working state. This increases a life cycle of trial and error, because you may do some mistakes while you are modifying your CI pipeline. So what nektos Act enables you to do is you modify your CI pipeline, test it locally, and once you're sure that, okay, now this is ready and could go on to the live state, you just push it to the master or merge it to the master, and then it's there. The other thing is no more make. All right, so I'm not an expert on make. I do have some basic idea of use it now and then, but let's be very honest. Make looks dirty you write a shell script, which some of them write their own way and some will have some other ways of doing it. So I don't know, it can be very confusing for any beginner to look at make and be lost what's happening around it. So what you can do is replace your make files with CI pipelines that are running locally, and yeah, you're good to go. Understanding a YAML is much better than any bash file, I would say. Embarrassments. Oh yeah. So it happened to me a lot of times that I made mistakes. I made a lot of spelling mistakes, and that was not intentional. Obviously, that was like, it just happened while you're typing fast and you're trying to be, at the best of your time. So you don't definitely want to go ahead and, fix things, git rebase, force push. You can avoid this whole mess and just use your GitHub Actions so that you have those spell checks implemented in your CI pipeline, and you save all the embarrassments in front of your team. Okay, so what is nektos Act? nektos Act is an open source project that is available on GitHub, and it basically, what it does, it runs your actions, your workflows as a Docker containers. So it's all you need to know about writing using nektos Act is a bit of Docker, maybe not essentially, but yeah, it will help at least for the debugging part. Then the other thing that you might know is writing your GitHub workflow pipelines, and that's it. The other thing that you want to be aware of is runners. Basically, a runner is a GitHub action runner, which is going to take your code, your block of pipeline that is to be executed as a workflow, and it then what it does, it looks for that Docker image if there is one available for that particular action. If it's not, then you can actually define your action steps through which that it can develop an action image. It will take a runner, and on that runner, it will deploy all those actions as certain jobs, basically. Now, Nactosec comes with different flavors of runners. You can have a slimmed version of a runner. You can have a medium-sized runner that could be ranging around somewhere 500 to 600 MB. And then you can have a full-blown runner, which will have absolutely most of the things that you have on GitHub Actions pre-ready for you. But remember, the size of the runner is going to be somewhere around 2 gigs. So be careful about that. And I think medium size of runners is more than happy. I mean, you'll be pretty happy with that. So I'll give you a walkthrough of how you can where you can find those runners and how you can pick one. Configurations. So Act is being developed as a command line tool as well. And what it does is it accepts certain parameters and options that you can use while you're running your GitHub Actions locally. At the same time, while this could be very confusing, you also have a provision of using configuration that is known as act.rc. So basically what you do is you define an act.rc file, put your configurations inside that file, and which will be like sourced automatically. And then the options will be read, and Act will do the jobs according to the configurations that you have given. Let's do some action. So for this demo, I'll be using Nactosec, obviously, and I'll be using a very simple CI pipeline for the demo. Because I'm running on a Mac Air, it could be like blown away, which actually happened a few minutes ago, that I was using a different runner and I accidentally happened to crash my system, and I had to cancel or postpone my talk. So I'll be using Docker in Docker, which makes it a lot easier for me to write a simple thing. So let's jump on to the demo. I'm hoping everything is still visible on the screen. So in this directory, I have CI, GitHub Actions demo, and a Tink directory. Tink is basically a Tinkerbell. I'll be starting with GitHub Actions demo, which is a simple one. Let's open this in code and see what we have. Alrighty. So to build a CI pipeline, I've used this Docker file, which is pretty straightforward to follow. I'm using Docker in Docker as the base image. I'm adding curl to the Alpine. So the DNA is actually based upon Alpine. So I'm adding curl, and then I'm using curl to install act from the script. After that, we can ignore this act.rc for the time being, so that I can show you an issue that you might probably run into. Then what I'm doing is I'm creating a work project directory, and then at the end, what I want to do is run act and write the logs to these logs, run.log and dry run.log. That's basically it. Act.rc we will look in a minute. So let's jump in. Let's build our Docker image. Oh, I have Docker stopped. Why can't demos go in a single way? Why do they always have to have some hiccups? I don't know. It's like with most of the engineers, I believe. I'm not the only exception. So let's give it a second. Should be good in any second now. Come on. Oh, it's taking longer than I thought. Okay, so Docker is ready. Just build the image again. Okay, our build is ready. So clean this up. So what I've done is I'm going to export my project directory as GitHub Actions demo. And what it basically has, it has a CI pipeline that you find under GitHub Workflows at main.yaml. So this is the CI pipeline that I'll be using to demonstrate. So it basically what it does is takes Ubuntu latest and this. So Nactos Act what will do, it will find a runner, appropriate runner for this Ubuntu latest runner kind, and then it will just do this. action, execute this action. So let's jump in back. Let's take our Docker run. So let me walk you through what I'm doing here. In the meantime, I'll run this. So I'm mounting my Docker socket as a volume inside the container. Then I'm this using this exported variable, which is like my directory inside project. And then I'm creating a directory as logs to see all the logs. Let's tail the log. So as you can see, there's a message that is actually asking me to choose which kind of runner I want to use, whether I want to use a large runner or I want to use a medium one or I want to go with a micro. And this is happening because I have not provided nektos Act with the configuration that it really needs to know that which kind of runner or which Docker images should be pulling based on your configuration. So that is why it's kind of in a fail state. And you could run into this as an obvious thing. So let's fix it real quick. Gonna uncomment. Oops. Let's save this. Let's take a look at what's under Act ARC. So -p is a flag that through which you can specify which runner you want to use. And I'm saying for Ubuntu, any workflow, that is using that wants to run on Ubuntu latest, use this runner, and which is basically a Docker image, and then run the whole workflow on that. So let's build our CI pipeline again. We are good. I'll remove all any containers that I have in running state. And we are good to go again. So it should be Docker run. Again, using the same project. Let's run it. Let's tail on. Interesting. Should be truncated any minute. Okay. So we have a CI running in. So it went ahead. So a Docker run, it did the image as this. You can see the entry point is that's specified in the runner itself. And going forward, we have some debug logs. It clones the repo and then mounts our basically we should see an explicit message that the action was successful. Yeah. So we were finally able to run our GitHub Actions. So our CI pipeline is working absolutely fine and we are good to go ahead. So this was a very basic example. Now let's take a look at some more complicated one. So I'll change my repository to Tink. Let me quickly show you what Tink CI looks like. Okay, so we have different jobs, and I have commented out most of it because this will be like a few more than 15 minutes or so to run this whole thing. So at the first, what I wanted to do is do a vet on the Go project that we have. We want to verify for Go imports. We want to run some tests. At Tinkerbell, what we do is we not just have unit tests, we actually have some integration tests that behind the scenes use test containers project, which is basically like when you spin up your unit test, it's going to spin up on a different container behind the scenes. And let's say you have 5 tests, then you will be running in 5 Docker containers, and that integration test will take place. So that's is the why I have commented this out. We don't want to cross compile at this point, and we definitely don't want to build any Docker images, which is like overkill for this demo. So if you want to experiment, you are more than welcome to try this thing. Let's remove our logs. And in fact, I will close this. And as soon as we have the logs directly created here, I'll open the logs in there. So I'll export Tink, Docker run XCI. We have the logs. So we have the dry run running. Okay, seems to be good. And here's the run actually happening. So if we have any questions in between, I'll be more than happy to take them at this point. So I think this will definitely take some time because it's going to mount the whole directory from project to GitHub/workspace, and it basically going to do all this magic things behind the scenes. It's a quite a massive CL pipeline. And as an example or as a use case, so I'm not sure if you guys know about the Fission project. It's a it's a way of running your code as functions in Kubernetes cluster, functions on the fly. So what I'm doing as a contribution to Fission, and that I'm writing there on their CI pipeline, restructuring it so that it looks much clean. And if I jump to Fission slash, so at this point, they have this workflows, which is a single job that is going to do integration test, and it has blah 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 blah, and it has quite a lot that is happening. And I think it would absolutely make sense to split it in different actions or different jobs, as you say. And yeah, that makes more sense. So I'm working on that part. Plus Fission is missing go linting, so I'll be adding that as well. So we have our action kick in. It was able to check out the code. We have some debug logs, and this is running our action at this point. I'll do control toggle word wrap. Maybe I'll just close this. Let's give it a few minutes, or maybe what we can do is jump back to slides and we'll just come back at this running action once it's complete. So we are looking at a demo that's happening behind the scenes. To save time, let's go ahead. Now, a word of caution about the whole runners and thing. There are three flavors for different versions of Ubuntu. Let's say if you want to use Ubuntu latest, then you have a micro version or the lightest, slimmest version that you can use as a runner. You have a latest one. I'm using a middle one, a medium-sized runner, and then you can have a full runner. The challenge here is that few things that will work in your medium runner will not run in your slim sized runner. And I think that's basically because they wanted to give you ways, like let's say if you want to just have some like as small as the first initial GitHub action that we saw that didn't require too much on its plate, we could use a slim version. But for something that is complicated as running go linting, running tests, we might want to consider a medium one. And then we want to have, if let's say support for Nix OS, or maybe like building Docker images, something that is more heavy duty than instead of running a medium sized runner, you may want to switch to a full blown runner. And that's actually could be challenging because any beginner or anyone could be like kind of lost. So I believe on the nektos acts part, it will be nice if they can document it, or what functionalities or features they have for each runner. If it's not already in place, I'm not sure if it is already in place. So I myself have to explore it a bit. Now, coming to actions, not all actions that you see in GitHub Actions are by default supported, and Nix OS is the great example. So for Tinkerbell, what we do is we have spell checks running in your CI pipeline, and there are certain things that you want to do and use Nix OS as the base, which is not supported at this point in Actosec. So you may run into some issues, and I think if you do run because of a runner or because of certain actions not being executed as you expect them, or if they are running on GitHub Actions but these are not running on your local, I would highly recommend you open up an issue or Nactos Act, or just check their documentation if that action is actually supported or not. I think that's pretty much it that I wanted to share. I'm not an expert on Nactos Act. I'm just someone who bumped into it, and I kind of like the project. It really helps. And yeah, let's see if we have our action completed. Okay, it got Go. It's kind of installing Go, extracting Go. Then we have some Go environment variables printed out. and then our Go imports failed, which is absolutely fine. So it's not like the demo has failed or successful. The demo was to show you that, okay, we can run Go imports or some our Go pipeline with nektos, and that's what's happening. So I think I'm pretty good. So if we have any questions, I'll be more than happy to take them now. And yep, thank you for your time. Thank you very much. I'll be more than happy if you'd like to have questions even after this talk. We can connect always on Twitter, LinkedIn, and I'm there on Collabinix. I'm pretty active there, I believe. So yeah, thank you very much.
So we have few questions like, how do you manage day 1, day 2 with gitops? First question.
I just realized my speaker was off, so I don't know if I had any questions. I just lost them.
Okay. There was a question like, how do you manage day 1, day 2?
Anyone? Give me a second. Can I try again?
Okay. I'm audible now? Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
How do you manage day 1, day 2 with gitops?
I'm not a GitOps expert. I would rather leave the GitOps people to answer this. I have absolutely no idea what GitOps is. I like in the panel itself, I was more of a noob who's trying to understand GitOps. I do know Git, but I just trying my way out with Git Actions. So I leave Apurv and others to answer this question.
Okay, so what are the limitations of Docker in Docker?
Okay, so Docker in Docker is a very nice way to get started with certain things. I think it has most of the support. I don't have exact answer to this. So there's a ton of people who are exploring. Okay, Sangam is here if he has some answers. Sangam, you're on mute.
Okay, so Docker in Docker. So I can give an answer here.
Yeah.
So the limitation of Docker into Docker is like you have a container inside a container. So is that we are accessing the socket of the container. So it's going to communicate through that socket. Without socket, we can't able to do that. And if you put too much workload, it's going to crash, or there is some kind of CPU memory limit, because Docker into Docker is something like it's isolated inside an isolated box. So there are a lot of limitations. Yeah,
and it's like Sangam said, it's going to be CPU heavy. So I have my fans going crazy at this point because I'm running Docker and Docker, and you might face certain issues because ultimately it's a kind of a hack that is available.
Actually, it's good if you are like creating kind of sandbox and just to have a environment to run some kind of application, not too much heavy, because it's gonna take too much memory and the power. I believe that is the correct answer.
Yep.
Okay. So can I run Docker in Docker and Docker? That's something like nested Docker.
You can run Docker into Docker, but you need a huge CPU
system,
or GPU kind of thing. But you can do that. Maybe on cloud you can host and do.
I would say if you can run Kubernetes inside Docker, then you can probably run anything inside Docker.
But
mostly
accessing is very difficult.
Right.
Okay. Okay, so I think we pretty much covered all the questions. So thanks, Gaurav, for the wonderful session.
Thank you.